Israel has announced plans to build more residences for Jewish settlers in the occupied West Bank. Israel's land authority has published tenders for about 1,300 new settlement homes in the West Bank. The West Bank has been occupied by Israel since the 1967 Six-Day War. Most countries regard Israel's West Bank settlements as illegal. The new homes add to the more than 2,000 residences already authorized. The final approval is expected from the Defense Ministry this week for those homes. About 475,000 Israeli Jews live in settlements in the West Bank, which are considered illegal under international law. Housing Minister Ze'ev Elkin said in a statement that strengthening Jewish presence in the West Bank was essential to the Zionist vision. The new houses will be built in 7 settlements in the West Bank on lands that Palestinians want for a future state. The move has drawn immediate condemnation from Palestinians, peace activists, and neighbouring Jordan. The West Bank-based Palestinian Ministry of Foreign Affairs said in a statement, the new settlement plans could have a catastrophic impact on chances to make peace on the basis of the two-state solution and on regional US and international efforts to build confidence between the Israeli and Palestinian sides. Palestinian Prime Minister Mohammed Shtayyeh has called on world nations, and especially the United States, to confront Israel over the, quote, aggression that settlement construction poses for the Palestinian people. Joe Biden's administration has maintained opposition to unilateral Israeli settlement construction, which it sees as an obstacle to a two-state solution to the conflict. Remember, US-backed peace talks between Israel and the Palestinians broke down in 2014. Jordanian Foreign Ministry spokesman Haytham Abu al-Ful blasted settlement construction and general confiscation of Palestinian land as illegitimate. Anti-occupation group Peace Now slams the Bennett government with a diverse coalition for not turning out to be a government of change, calling on Bennett's left-wing governing parties to cease the building. Peace Now said Naftali government clearly continues with Netanyahu's policy of de facto annexation. But Israel's Prime Minister Naftali Bennett is against Palestinian statehood. Bennett himself is the former head of a settler lobby group. He has ruled out formal peace talks with the Palestinian Authority during his tenure. Joining us live is West Asia analyst Meir Javid Anfar. Meir, what more can you tell us about these developments?
Well, they're already leading to some acrimony within the current government of Prime Minister Bennett. As you quite rightly said, the current government consists of pro-settlement parties, such as the Yamina Party and New Hope, and anti-settlement parties, chief amongst them Meretz Party and Labour Party also. But the left-wing parts of this government are complaining. But the bottom line is this. Nobody is going to bolt from the current government. The left-wing organizations are not going to bolt from the current government. The reason being is that if these differences lead to one single party leaving the current government, it will collapse, and we could have another round of elections, which could be the 5th within 2.5 years in Israel. This is something that nobody wants. So each part of the government are, even though they're one government, are independently acting and speaking on behalf of their own interests. And right now, the right-wing sections of the current government are continuing with the settlement building because that's what their voters expect. And they are concerned that if they don't do this, if they go to elections within the next 4 years, they could lose. So they're acting in accordance to their interests. And as I said, the left-wing parties are complaining, but they can't do that much more because they don't want the government to disintegrate.
Now, the Palestinians argue that the West Bank will be instrumental to a future Palestinian state, the majority in Israel believes it has a right to build in these areas. Can you explain to us what Israel's connection is to these West Bank settlements?
Well, there's the historic connection. There's the political, these were parts of Greater Israel thousands of years ago. Then there is the political connection, which right-wing Israelis see these lands as important for the continuation of the Zionist dream. This is especially true with regarding to right-wing organizations who are connected to Zev Jabotinsky, the father of the Greater Israel ideology. Then there's the military ideology that says, look, Israel in some places is only 12 kilometers wide, which means that, we need to build more, because the more settlements we build, the more space, strategic depth we will have. These are the arguments they present, but the left wing also has some pretty valid arguments against the settlements. One of them being is that they undermine peace with the Palestinians. Another one being is that, look, you can't expect homes full of Jewish women and children to act as a shield, because in case of a war, we're not going to use the Israelis in the West Bank as a human shield. So it's an ongoing process, and it's an ongoing struggle within Israel, and I don't see it ending anytime soon.
Thank you, Meir Javid Anfar, for joining us and for your insights there. Moving on now, former US representative for Afghanistan has made a startling revelation. He says the US was losing the war in Afghanistan and hence decided to negotiate with the Taliban. Zalmay Khalilzad, who recently resigned as UN envoy to Afghanistan, also admitted that the US did not put enough pressure on former Afghan President Ashraf Ghani to share power with the Taliban. Khalilzad, speaking for the first time since his resignation, also acknowledged that things had not worked out the way he had wanted.
I believe myself, now that you've asked, that rather than that we pressed Ghani too much, it's my judgment that we didn't press him hard enough. Not saying it was an ordered withdrawal. This was an ugly final phase, no doubt about it. It could have been a lot worse. It could be a lot. The Talibs did help with the withdrawal. General McKenzie would tell you they did everything we asked them to do during that final phase. I was on the phone with them constantly.
The former envoy placed most of the blame on Ghani, saying that under the original withdrawal conditions, the Taliban would have eventually agreed to power sharing, though evidence for that was vague. But as the Taliban offensive surged in the weeks leading up to the August 31st withdrawal deadline, Ghani fled, which enabled the Taliban to march into Kabul and take the capital. Khalilzad also said that the leader of Al-Qaeda, Ayman al-Zawahiri, may still be in Afghanistan or close by in neighbouring countries. However, the former envoy doubted whether the Taliban knew about his whereabouts. The ex-envoy also admitted that in the 20 years of American military presence in Afghanistan, the country failed to become a democracy.